Chris here, and I'm taking a look today at the Lenovo Legion Y740. This is the 15.6-inch, 144 Hz screen that this one's got in here, and the RTX 2070, which will be driving it. Now that has 8 GB of dedicated graphics RAM, and the system itself has 16 GB, this particular configuration I have. We also have a 256 GB NVMe SSD, which should be very fast. I believe it's the Samsung PM981, and a slower 1 TB hard drive. So let's get this unboxed to go over the design of it and my initial first impressions of this gaming laptop. In the box you can see we've got really good padding here on the top, so it is well protected in transit. There's the laptop, which feels a little bit heavy. Now I'm going to weigh the total travel weight of this. So the laptop itself, and then with the power supply, we have a setup guide here and safety and warranty guide. And then our power supply and the cable. So the cable's using that standard connector that you normally see with desktop PC power supply units. So you'll be able to source a replacement for that one quite easily if you needed to do so, or you were importing it and you wanted a UK or Euro plug. And here's our rather large 230 watt power supply. So the laptop weighs in at a heavy 2.27 kilos, and that's to be expected for a gaming laptop. They've got increased cooling on them, and if you include the power supply and all the cables needed to, so this in your backpack then brings it up to 3.23 kilos total travel weight. So the lid has a nice dark grey colour here. You can see the Legion logo there. This does have backlit lighting within the actual O here, but you can disable this apparently within the settings. I'll look into that now. Can it be opened up one-handed? Yes, it can. So there's our keyboard. Okay, so first impressions of the keyboard. I'm not a huge fan of this. This is something that the Xiaomi Mi Gaming laptop has, and this is your macro keys you have on the left-hand side. What normally happened when I was using that one, and probably in the same case with this one, but I'll see how I go, is often I would go for the shift key, hit this, I'll go for escape key and end up hitting this right here. So hopefully I'm not going to be doing that. You just need some time to adapt and get used to it. That was definitely the case with that laptop. So pressing down hard in the middle here, I can see we've got a little bit of flex. The key travel doesn't seem to actually be a lot. They seem a little shallow there. That's our control there for the backlighting. Of course, we do have a full RGB keyboard, more on that shortly in this video. And our touchpad, I believe this one is Windows Precision Driver Control. I mean, everything is now. And if we have the two individual mouse hardware buttons there that feel a little bit awkward too, the way they sink down. They're quite deep, so they didn't look to be the best there. Great that they have separated the power button away, of course, from the keyboard. It's not like where the delete key would be. They haven't done anything silly like that. Now our screen here is a matte screen. It's an IPS, and it does have 144 Hz refresh rate, which is good. So that means you can use G-Sync and aim for that. With some games, of course, you're going to have to lower the settings depending on how demanding it is. The hinge, first impressions of that, feels good, nice and stiff. And the bezels, they're nice and slim, top, left, and right. And the bottom bezel, yes, quite large. And that is where they have put our webcam. So it's one of those looking up your chin, up your nose webcams, unfortunately. It is a 1080p one. So the screen does actually push right the way back 180 degrees. In fact, just over 180 degrees, more like about 190, which is really good. You don't often see this. Normally they limit it. So you can see the webcam, and it does have a status LED, and those two little dots left and right, they are, of course, our microphones. The palm rest, this is made out of an alloy, and it doesn't have any real flex to it. I'm pushing very hard here, so that is actually quite good. One thing to note, and what I really like about this laptop so far, is there's no crazy gamer accents. There's no red all over it, there's no big dragon, flame logos or anything like that. It's actually really tame for a gaming laptop. On the back of the laptop, you'll find 2 of 4 exit vents. So the hot air will be coming out the back here, but also from the side, which may warm your hand up a little bit. And this is where most of our ports are. So we have mini display port, HDMI 2.0A, 2 USB 3.1 ports, gigabit LAN right there, and then the power in and Kensington lock slot. On the right hand side, we've got the single USB 3.1 port here. So this will be great for, of course, plugging in a mouse. On the left, the exit vent you can see there on the side, a 3.5mm headphone jack with mic support, and then a Type-C port. And yes, I can confirm that this Type-C port does support video out. On the bottom we have some nice solid rubber feet and a huge air vent along the back here, so it's all circular, the design here, and this is where all of that cold air is going to be sucked in and expelled from the sides and the back. And accessing the internals is not too difficult. Just remove all the screws from the rear and simply just pry it up, and it comes off without too much difficulty. Or at least it did for me, and that's because it's a review unit
and a few YouTubers have already been here before. In fact, one of them, I've got to complain. Whoever had it last almost stripped a couple of the screws, which is not too good to do. So we've got RAM right under here that you can upgrade. There's no other RAM slot on the other side of the motherboard, which is great. A 1TB hard drive too, so you could replace this with an SSD because it's rather loud, the spindle drive on idle, the system when you're pretty much doing nothing or just surfing the web, for example, that's making more noise than the fans. And then we have our NVMe drive here that you could replace. Good to see Lenovo put a thermal pad on top of it. Just above it is our killer wireless card, and it would be easy to blow out and clean out any dust for maintenance of this particular unit. And repasting it, well, you've got a lot of screws to remove if you were going to go in there and repaste that. So my first impressions of this IPS panel with 144 Hz are good so far. So maximum brightness is almost 400 lux. That's not too bad considering it's a matte screen gaming laptop. You're going to be using it indoors, really. I don't know who's going to be gaming out in direct sunlight. So if you were going to be doing that, then you would obviously need a little bit brighter here. But the colors look good. I will measure it later on with my Spider 5 Pro just to get the exact gamut out of it. But really, it seems to me, especially for gaming and media consumption, things like that, that the screen's going to be perfect. So on first boot, you're going to get approximately about 190 gigabytes free on the C drive, which is very fast because it's a NVMe drive. It's a Samsung one. I am benchmarking it here currently with Crystal Disk Info, and you can see those speeds are very good. So you're going to have no bottlenecks, no slowdown with that whatsoever. So that's probably where you want to install your main games. And if you've got a large collection of video files or MP3s and things, then of course you would move them over to the slower and what is set up as data, the D drive here. So you've got 1 terabyte, well under 1 terabyte free there, and your typical kind of speed, so about 120 writes, sequentials, and reads with that one. The wireless card that's on board here is a gigabyte wireless AC, and just to point out too that there's a CPU, so it's a 6-core, and it does have the 12 threads, so that's why it shows up so many times listed in the device manager here. I have benchmarked it with the Geekbench 4, decent scores, so this is just like any other i7-8750H, good speeds, and I did run just a quick graphics test, so in my full review I'll be doing some gaming and a few other GPU benchmarks as well. So this is Firestrike 1.1 with a good score, not bad at all. And I'll just point out a little bit more info because I do have GPU Z running here in the background for those interested. So you can see we do have a double data rate 6 Samsung that they have gone with, and the bus width is a 256-bit, and it doesn't bring up for some reason our bandwidth has gone unknown, but it is good. It is very good for this type of card. I will see if I can overclock it a little bit because being the Max Q design, it is actually underclocked a little bit to keep the temperatures down. Now, speaking of thermals, they are looking interesting, to say the least. I've really got to push it hard, but in the stress test just under Firestrike's CPU test, it bumped up to 92 degrees. And yes, it did actually trigger thermal throttling, as you can see here. This right there, thermal throttling, and there is a yes. So that was really just the CPU being pushed hard. So it's going to be interesting to see when both the GPU and CPU with really demanding games, once it attacks also the CPU, probably like Witcher 3 on the highest possible settings, we'll see how the fan noise is going to be, and most importantly, the thermals there. But it looks like it will be throttling down a little, which is sad to see. Here's the final result too of the drive that I was benchmarking. So yes, it's really fast. The RAM speeds as well, so it is dual channel DDR4 running in 2666 megahertz. 16 gigabytes on my particular model. And what about bloatware too? So manufacturers, they often cram a lot. I know HP's been really bad, and Asus too, quite bad too with the amount of bloatware they put on. So you don't really actually get a lot at all. Lenovo, very tame from a manufacturer to put on really just a couple of applications. So you've only got, when you look under Lenovo here, just Lenovo Utility and Vantage that were pre-installed on the system. So this is the Vantage Utility. You can take a look at our system resources here, give you a monitor, the RAM, what the GPU is doing, what's being stressed out. Hybrid mode here is when you can actually switch over to use the switchable graphics, so using the integrated graphics on the Intel to give us more battery life. Probably extend it quite a bit actually, because being with G-Sync on and then running off the NVIDIA RTX 2070, of course, is going to really tax that battery life. So you can disable it, and that disables G-Sync, which is really good to have. And just other standard things in here like system tools, system updates for BIOS updates. I'm all on the latest drivers, all on the latest updates, of course, for this video. Dolby Atmos sound. I will give you a sample shortly of the speakers. What was missing is the keyboard controller software to control the RGB lighting on it. It's not actually pre-installed for some weird reason. So I had to search around and find this, and I found out it's the iQ, so this is Corsair's software. So they have a partnership, Lenovo, between Corsair, and then this is where you can finally actually tweak the RGB lighting that's on the keyboard. You've got the different zones, and then around the vents, of course, does have RGB lighting, and then that logo that I showed you on the top, you can tweak all of that with this particular software that's not actually so straightforward to use. So for speakers, we have two side-firing ones here, which is good because if they're downwards firing, you can sometimes block them if you were actually using it on your lap, which I highly recommend against because this being a gaming laptop, it's going to get hot. The vent is on the bottom as well, the intake where all the air comes from. So they do lack a little bit of bass to me. And after listening to, of course, the Lenovo Yoga C930 with its soundbar and two little subs in it, this doesn't sound quite as good. But here's that sample. So what about battery life? Normally it is terrible on gaming laptops, and yes, this is no exception. You're going to get, I can see, about 2 hours. That is, of course, running on the dedicated GPU. If I swapped over to the hybrid mode, then expect that to be possibly about an hour and a half or so more. So you're looking at about 3 hours. It's only got a 57 watt-hour battery in here, so not amazing battery life. You don't want to be too far away from a power plug, so you can plug in the charger. Alright, so that's my first look at the Legion Y740. And so far, I really like the screen of this. Okay, 144 Hz, but not that. It's got G-Sync, but also we can disable the G-Sync. You've got that hybrid mode, so you will be able to use switchable graphics if you wanted to extend the battery life. Now, the battery life is poor on this anyway, so you probably, I don't even know if most people will be doing that. You probably just leave it on the dedicated graphics card, of course. So that RTX, the 2070, seems to be very powerful. That is good. And will it get really hot? Will it actually end up throttling? That's something I will look at because we've already seen a little bit of throttling on the CPU with the 3D Mark, their Firestrike test, just the physics test on there, peaked at 92, and the fans did get quite loud, which is not really good to see. So I'll be definitely testing that out a lot and focusing on that particular area as well as the fan noise. Now the keyboard, I'm not a fan of that column that's on the left side. When I go to hit escape, I'm hitting that instead and the control key as well, and it's just going to take me a while to get used to it. This laptop reminds me so much of Xiaomi's Mi Gaming laptop, and I wasn't fond either of having that column there. I don't think they should mess around with the keyboards like that. I'd rather see the macro keys above the keyboard. I think that's a much better location. Or just don't even put them there to begin with, but please don't put them Lenovo on the left-hand side to mess it up with the configuration of a typical keyboard. So the sound out of the speakers, it's okay, it's good. Loudness is fine, it just could have a little bit of bass. Perhaps they could have put a sub in there, but it doesn't look like they've got a lot of room for that. Webcam location is not in a particularly good spot. And I like the fact that there's, of course, no gamer logos on this. There is no gamer bling. There's no flames, there's no dragons, no gamer red accent on this, which is great to see this more toned down look. And the build quality is very good from it as well. So overall, it's looking like a good, decent gaming laptop. It's just a few areas that I'm going to focus on in my full review. So I do hope to catch you back for that. Thank you so much for watching this unboxing and initial impressions.